This video is a recording of how to make the famous grandma rolls. And if you can see, the ingredients are listed here. But by following these, it would be very difficult. So Tony's going to take us through the process.
There are tricks to it. As you can see on the recipe, you start off by adding sugar, egg, and shortening and beat together, and then add water. One thing I do prior to, because the bowl is generally cold, whether you use a metal bowl or a glass bowl, it's going to be cold. So I warm it up with hot water. So your water, when you add it, it doesn't cool down too much. And then if that happens, your dough won't rise. So I get the bowl tempered with hot water first. Make sure it's dry, because that adds moisture that you don't need. So for the fat ingredient, Grandma always used oleo. Back in the day, her mom used lard, because this recipe is over 100 years old. And I've come to use Crisco butter flavored sticks just because it comes in a convenient amount, which is just what you want. Grandma even made it in a mixer like this, but you can do it by hand. I taught my little sister Shelly how to do that earlier this year. You just need a big bowl and a good solid spoon to mix it, and they turned out just fine. This works out nicely to grease your bowl that you're going to use to let your dough rise overnight or during the day, however you decide to do it. So you have your shortening, your 2 cups of sugar, and I add extra just to make them a little extra sweet, which tends to go off well with people. Just practice and figure out a flavor that works for you. So you're going to cream those 3 ingredients. Again, you're going to want to add the hot water. Since I'm using a cold glass bowl, I'm warming it up so the water doesn't cool down. So now that we have that creamed, we're going to add our 2 cups of hot water. And actually, we're not going to add it all at once, because that would make kind of a splashy mess. Kind of like that. We have our loaf of frozen bread dough thawed and pretty much at room temperature. You want it at room temperature, again, not to cool the water down, so you get a good rise on your dough. And then just break it off into little strips and add it to your mixture. Grandma told me that back in the day they would just hold out a cup of dough from the previous day to make the next day's bread as their starter. She transferred and started using frozen bread dough, and it seems to work just fine. Now I'm going to add 1 cup of flour. I'm going to add 1 cup of flour just to make the mix not so sloppy. And then add the rest of my water. And now that you have it mixing, you're going to start adding more flour, a little bit at a time. If you're using a mixer like this, you're probably going to get about 4, maybe 5 cups of flour in before you're going to need to stop and then finish it by hand. I use bread flour. Grandma used all-purpose. I don't know that it really matters. I've used both. Pretty much I use bread flour for everything. You will on occasion want to stop it and wipe down the sides. You'll notice too, the mixer that I'm using, it's not the dough hook. Grandma said that this is the way she discovered has always worked best. I have tried the dough hook and it does not work that good, so I did go back to this. I'm using a 1/2 cup scoop just in case you're curious that I'm adding a ton of flour. It's not a ton of flour. And you'll know that the dough's ready when it starts to climb up the mixer paddle. And you can hear that it kind of pulls down on the mixer a little bit too. You can tell we're starting to get a pretty nice light, sticky dough. can see it's a sticky dough. That's how it's going to be when you turn it out. You can hear that over the years the making of these rolls has taken its toll on the mixer, but not putting KitchenAid down or anything, but this mixer is 20 years old, so it's been working pretty hard for a long time. The dough's to a point where you didn't see it really crawling up, but it's kind of at a point where I like to just do the rest by hand. Because you really have to get a feel for it, what the dough is. I'll try to describe it to you the best I can, because really it's something you have to feel to understand. And I think to have the success that I have had. So then you see here I got it, the surface floured, and then you just pour the soft dough out on the flour. It's gonna stick, guaranteed, so just be ready for that. But if you can keep your flour down, that helps. And because it is so sticky, I add flour on top, and then I fold it in with the spatula, because I mean, again, it's so sticky. You want it to get a little bit firm before you start using your hands. This is where it gets messy for your counter and floor and whatnot. Flour your hands to help the kneading. And then you're just going to knead in the rest of the flour. Grandma said never use more than 7 or 8 cups of flour. I don't remember exactly. I've got it to where I know what it should feel like more than an amount of flour. And the recipe calls for a firm dough. For me personally, I've found that over the years, not too firm has worked better for me. A breadboard is ideal. That's what Grandma always had. It worked fantastic. You can see the dough is quite sticky. So we're just about there.
Max, Max.
So again, this is probably more sticky than most people are used to, but it's kind of the way I like it, and it makes a nice fluffy roll. So you have your greased bowl, a large grease bowl, because this will expand quite a bit. And then you can spray this with cooking oil so it doesn't get dry and sticky. And then just cover it with plastic wrap until it doubles in size. And then you're ready to form the rolls, and we'll do that part in the morning. So here's our dough that's risen overnight.
Oh.
You can see it's been very active. And because of how much it rises, you might want to remember to loosely cover it with the plastic wrap. Otherwise you could have a real explosion on your hand. So then you just press it down. I've lightly sprayed the pan with cooking spray, and then you just form your rolls. You get a little piece of dough and pinch it off, and then to form the roll you just roll it in the palm of your hand with the thumb of your other hand. The dough, I don't know, a little bit bigger than a golf ball, however large you want your rolls. And then you just repeat until you get all your rolls formed. This could take you a little experience to get that right. I still can't do it as well as my grandma could, but she had decades of experience.
Go ahead.
Okay, we're about done forming our rolls. These pans I've had for quite a while. I bought them and they have a lid. Works really nicely. And I made these rolls, when they rise, they will be nice and big. When they get to where they're almost touching the top of the lid, you know that they're ready to bake. Another thing I've done today to kind of help everything along, on the oven I have a bread proof setting that I use, and that will help speed up the rising process. Because we're going to cook these and take these to a church group function later today. So that's it. We'll come back a little later when it's time to bake them and let you see what the finished product looks like. Okay, the rolls have risen. Time to take them out and get ready to bake. So here's about the size they are based on what I began with and what they'll look like when they're ready to bake. Again, like I said, they're pretty good sized rolls. So then we'll just turn the oven on to 350 and then we bake them for 25 to 30 minutes. Halfway through the baking you'll want to rotate the pan, because I don't know of any oven that truly cooks evenly. So that's how it'll go.